So far we've been talking about antimicrobial compounds in terms of antibacterial compounds. And we see that these compounds usually target things that are specific to bacteria, and that makes them harmless to animals and humans. What kinds of molecules do these antibacterials target? Well, they target the cell wall, because animal cells don't have cell walls. They target things like the replication enzymes for both DNA replication and for transcription, which is also a replicated process. And they target the protein construction enzymes, specifically the ribosome. Now, our cells have both of these types of molecules, but bacterial replication enzymes and ribosomes are different enough from our own that these molecules, these antimicrobials, can bind to those molecules from bacteria and not from our human cells. And again, that is because they have a different shape, a different chemistry, even though they perform similar functions. So how do we then make molecules or look for molecules that target viruses? Viruses are really difficult to target because they don't have their own unique enzymes, or they have very few. Now, I'll go through this quickly because we will do a whole section on viruses later, but the problem with viruses is that they consist of very little. Viruses are very simple. They have a protein coat, which is called the capsid. Some of them have a membrane, which is only for a subset. And all of them have some kind of nucleic acid genome, but the genome can be DNA or RNA. Now, in addition to not having very many molecules that they consist of, viruses end up using our cellular machinery. So in other words, if this is a human cell, a virus is going to use human ribosomes. And that's how the virus makes proteins. The virus is going to use human cell membrane if it needs this cell membrane. Viruses can use human DNA polymerase, and other molecules in the cell. So how do we then target a virus? We cannot target our own ribosomes to stop them from making viral proteins. We can't stop the ribosome from functioning because then we harm our own cells. So one of the most common antivirals is actually for a subset of viruses. And these viruses are called retroviruses. And retroviruses specifically carry an enzyme. And that enzyme is reverse transcriptase. Now this, as you might be thinking, this is not something that we have in humans. this is also not something that exists in bacteria. This is unique to some viruses. And this enzyme is used to read RNA. So the viral genome is RNA. Oh, it's super messy. And it reads RNA and makes DNA. Now this is the reverse of what we normally see, right? We normally read DNA to make mRNA. Well, in this case, we have RNA. That's what the virus carries around. And then we make DNA, and then, as we'll talk about later, we make more RNA to be used as the genome. But that's why this type of virus can be targeted by antivirals. And again, that is because it has this unique enzyme which we could then target. And this enzyme can be targeted with analogs. So something that we talked about in another video, base pair analogs or nucleotide analogs. And of course we use nucleotides, but there are certain nucleotide analogs that bind better to reverse transcriptase than to human DNA polymerase, for example. And that is what allows this to work specifically against viruses.